Hey everyone, it's Ashley Jones, Event Director at Marketing Showcase. Thanks for watching one of our recordings from Marketing Showcase Online. I really hope you enjoy it, and hopefully I'll see you at another one soon.
That's great. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. Thanks to Ash for the warm welcome. And I've got a challenge today, I guess, which is getting through these 20 must-haves in just under half an hour. So can I just apologize in advance? I'm going to go through it very quickly, but you will get a copy of the slide deck afterwards. So don't worry too much if you miss something, because I'll share that with you. Also, pop your questions in, as Ash said, and we'll come to those. Also, I just want to kind of put a little caveat in there, which is just the fact that I'm going to be answering or addressing these topics quite broadly. So I appreciate that some of these must-haves might not be relevant to your organization, but hopefully the majority will be. So without further ado, just literally a 30-second intro into me. So as Ash said, I'm Will. I'm the founder of WEBBOX. We're a digital agency based in Cardiff and London. We've been going for over 12 years. I've worked with brands such as Fevertree, the NHS, Airbus, St John Ambulance, and DS Smith to define their objectives and to deliver digital projects, whether that's websites or paid ad campaigns. And I genuinely enjoy working with businesses and organizations to help them to overcome those challenges and to see tangible results. So that's enough about me. Let's jump straight into it with a stat. So why does all of this matter? Before we delve into these 20 must-haves, why does all of this matter? Why are we even looking at improving our websites and web experiences? Well, according to the Gartner Future of Sales 2025 report, by 2025, 80% of B2B sales interactions between suppliers and buyers will occur in digital channels. Wow. Okay, so that is a huge stat, one which I think is going to be easily smashed, to be quite frank. So we need to take this stuff serious. If we've got a website already, we need to be looking at how we can improve that further. If you haven't got a website, where have you been? Let's get one in place and take you forward, maybe the digital transformation project. So let's delve in. What's the first must-have? The first must-have that your website must have in 2022 is advanced micro interactions. What are these? Let me just quickly show you what I mean by this. So as you can see, as you scroll through, there's lots of animations and you get led on a journey. Okay, lovely little example there of what happens when you put your mouse over different elements and as you scroll down the page. Now, why are these important? While the general purpose of design is communication, digital design can accomplish a little back and forth, that of interaction and feedback. So these moments in which a user takes an action, such as clicking on a button that causes the page to respond, are generally referred to as micro interactions. And their purpose is to foster a feeling of tactile satisfaction. Now, while page responses like these are nothing new, we predict that in 2022, we will see micro interactions become a lot more macro. So designers will intensify them through extreme animations and page transitions. This could range from sudden zooms to a complete reshuffling of the page layout. Although a less is more approach has been the law of the digital land for ages now, these over-the-top transitions do come across as kind of less intrusive because the user is causing them to happen by scrolling or clicking. The end result is UX that responds to input rather than forced upon you. So I love these. I think we're going to see a lot more of them next year. Okay, number 2, brand transparency. Okay, so for example, if you're selling this kind of product, you might use an image like this to actually delve into how the product is built up and what are its features. That's one way to give some transparency to maybe a product which you have for sale. Now, good UX is a silent teacher. It shows users where to find menus or buttons without them needing to ask. Navigation, however, is not the only lesson UX has to impart. Recently, we've seen a rise in UX that is centered around demonstrating a brand's ethics, showing the user how exactly products are made or services are delivered. This might include labels highlighting sustainable materials used, or even maybe social media pop-ups or overlays that express transparent policies around how content is moderated. Brands are beginning to realize that the first thing visitors to their website want these days is not necessarily a call to action button shoved in their faces. Instead, many are conscientious and need to have the brand's values shared with them before they'll make any sort of action. Through clear product breakdowns and transparent labeling, the UX of designers this year and next are going to be demonstrating that an app exists both in the digital sphere and in the real world its services affects. Number 3, live collaboration. So what do I mean by that? Let me just show you a quick example. So you can see here how multiple users might get involved in collaborating online. And I'm sure you've been doing a lot of this throughout lockdown. Okay, so when it seemed like work couldn't get any more digital, a pandemic made work from home a global standard. As a result, it's no surprise that there's been an increase in online collaboration tools and features, and we expect this trend to continue next year and just to grow from there. Examples of these kind of features include live viewing, editing, commenting, messaging, and tagging, ultimately putting all these kind of things digital and hosted, and it will see then the death of local files. Now, UI designers, for their part, are representing these simultaneous users through vibrant color coding, creative cursor designs, and snazzy avatars. While collaborative apps are common enough in the tech field, we're also seeing them extend to other industries. So, for example, if you're buying a kitchen, so if you're a kitchen company, for your website to have the ability for someone to create that kitchen online and to drag elements and cupboards around on screen to build their kitchen would be one example how you can get live collaboration into your website next year. Number 4, everyone's heard of this, I'm sure, augmented reality, and one which is a massively growing trend. Let me just show you a quick example of what I mean. So this is a online bike shop for you to purchase bikes, and they've brought AR into their buying process. I absolutely love that example. So obviously AR has existed for a very long time, but obviously the evolution of smartphone camera has firmly launched it into mainstream. So up until now, it's been largely dismissed, I guess, as kind of gimmicky tech. But the most common iteration of which we encounter in Snapchat and Instagram selfie filters. But AR apps are expanding to become more practical and commonplace. So we're seeing AR applied to everything from property rentals to museum tours, or even a nature walk. So this rising popularity will lead UX designers to to focus on interfaces that can be easily adapted to a camera overlay. So again, if this relates to you, for example, if you're an organization that maybe has a museum or kind of nature walks or those kind of things, then you might well be looking at incorporating AR into your website. Number 5, mobile first design. So it's really clear that mobile design is more important than desktop, because statistically, over 60% of all internet users will access a website via their mobile device. So mobile phone users make up the largest group of all the different device types. Needless to say, thumb-friendly mobile design is now simply essential. So your website needs to be intuitive and easy to navigate with the thumb alone. And ultimately, simplicity is the key. It's also worth noting that Google indexes websites based on their mobile kind of websites, not their desktop websites. They call that mobile first indexing. So that's something to bear in mind as well. And also just to consider, the fact that your website needs to have a very quick loading speed so that it can be accessed on mobile devices with a 3G connection, for example. Number 6, something which has been in the news a lot this year is cookie-based tracking and how it's changing. Okay, so at the moment, cookies would be left on a user's computer. A little small file is left there for tracking purposes, and that's going to be massively changing. It's already starting to change, but next year it's going to really hit. And we need to move to server-side cookie-based tracking. Okay, so ultimately this is something which, if you haven't had a conversation with your current web developer about, I would just encourage you to talk to them about it and just say, look, what's all this kind of cookie tracking about? And they'll give you the lowdown. Ultimately, in a nutshell, to overcome this change, you will need to implement server-side cookie tracking. So speak to your technical point of contact about that, but that is something which is going to be really big next year, and you'll need to be prepared for it. Number 7, motion UI design. Let me just quickly show you an example of what I mean by this. So here's a little graphic to show that. So this is a button, and when you click it, it gives you a loading bar for when the file is downloaded, and then the button changes to open. That little animation is what we call motion UI design. Now, ultimately, we really encourage you next year to make a lot more use of motion UI design to boost page interactivity. So when people see some feedback from your design on your website, they will more likely click again and make other actions. And ultimately, some of these buttons then might also be a call to action, and you want people to interact with your business. So this massively aids user experience because the user gets to see what they should click on and what's happening after they've clicked a button. Number 8, dynamic content. So let me show you a little example here. So you can see user A on the left-hand side would see one version of a web page, and then user B on the other side would see a completely different version of that page, different content, different imagery, potentially, even maybe potentially different layout. So let's have a look at dynamic content. So as consumers, we want information that is relevant to us and presented in the most convenient and concise way. Websites that display dynamic content have the highest engagement and conversion rates. But what exactly is dynamic content? This is where information, data, or visuals that are shown to users based on their geolocation or specific behavior and interests. So for example, if I browse a particular website while I'm in London and then travel to New York, the content I see could be different, even though I'm looking at the same page. Now, this technology could also be used with A/B split testing if you're looking to split test how your different versions of a page responds to users. And just a quick top tip to leave you with, if you're looking to implement something like this, we'd really recommend a tool called Personalize. So Personalize ends YZE to assist you with implementing this on your website. Okay, next thing, number 9, page speed. This is so important, okay, and a really, really big kind of ranking factor at the moment. So I'm not going to surprise anyone by saying that a slow website is the worst enemy of your online business, okay? It is really, really important. So previously, we could probably get away with a website that loads in 5 seconds or less. Now you just need to try even harder. Your website needs to load, we recommend, within 2 seconds at absolute most, even on slow internet connections. So it's time to ramp up those servers, optimize your code, simplify your design, and make sure that your website loads quickly. Quick top tip, run your website through Google's page speed tool, and it will give you an instant rating as to your website page speed. Number 10, halfway there, accessibility. So let me just show you a quick graphic. So this could be an accessibility options menu, which appears when you click on an accessibility icon on your website. This allows people to change text colors, background colors, font sizes, etc., for those that might be visually or hearing impaired. Now, it's the 21st century. currently it's the 21st year of the 21st century as well, and it's only logical as a highly developed society that we're talking and taking various disabilities really serious and make it effortless for disabled people to access information on the web. This stuff shouldn't be a nice to have. This should be absolute basics of any website. So your website needs to focus on accessibility and availability functions, as well as comprehensive design that caters for almost anyone. Just to put in a little caveat here, this is not just for public sector organizations that are trying to meet the WCAG 2.1 AA level compliance requirements. Okay, this is for everyone. So we need to take accessibility serious. Number 11, dark mode. Okay, so this is really cool. I'm sure you've seen it on maybe your mobile device already. They're kind of normally inbuilt now to have a dark mode. But the reality is most people are wanting that across different devices and web applications now, not just their phone, maybe an Apple or Android phone. So we're actually seeing dark mode come into websites now, and there's a little toggle normally where you can toggle dark mode on and off. It looks super sleek, but it can have other advantages. So for example, it can save battery life if people are viewing websites on a mobile. And actually Phone Buff found that it can extend the life of an iPhone battery by up to 30%. So it can have really good benefits, but there are also other benefits, which I won't go into now because of time. But dark mode is a feature which we'd encourage you to put on your website next year. Okay, number 12, have a clear message. Okay, now this sounds really obvious, but you know, have you ever wondered what you really need on your homepage? Well, actually, it's a great copywriter. Okay, we are an ultra consumer society, and we don't have time for stuff we don't need or care about. So what your unique selling point is, your mission and values, they need to be presented in one simple but very powerful message. And it must be the first thing a visitor sees on your website. So set out a really good one-liner on your website so that people understand what you do and what you offer very quickly. This is more important now than ever because people just don't have the time. Number 13, call to actions. Okay, so you know, lots of websites have them, but you know, believe you me, there's a lot of websites that don't as well. Okay, so good design will naturally draw the user's attention to your call to actions. So first and foremost, your website needs to have a really good design and a well thought out plan for where these call to actions are going to be placed. We'd also encourage you to incorporate multiple call to action types. So you might have some forms, a newsletter sign up, maybe a download of an ebook, phone us, contact us, you know, have a range so that as many users as possible will eventually convert. And then a quick top tip, if you've got a sticky navigation, which sticks to the top of the screen as you scroll down your website, you might want to actually use that to include a call to action within it so that when people scroll down the website, they can always see a call to action. Number 14, chatbots. Okay, so this is, again, not something necessarily new, but something we think is going to explode the rest of this year and into 2022. So they've been around for some time, but here's the thing which is going to change. It needs to be a lot more human. Okay, so I think the myth at the moment is that they're very robotic and you never get the answer that you want, but that is changing. Okay, and next year we're going to see lots of new releases of different chatbot tools, which are going to be a lot more kind of friendly and human, and this will allow people to engage with them more effectively. So it's worth considering the use of a chatbot on your website. But here's a key: you must test it and then kind of look at the results and then pivot and then repeat that. Test something else, look at the results and pivot. This is something which needs to constantly evolve from the data that you're gathering. Okay, number 15. This is a really exciting one. This is something which most people don't do. So listen up. This is something which I really recommend that you put on your website next year. Progressive lead forms. What do I mean by that? So you hit a website and it comes up with a form and it just asks maybe for some basic details, first name and email address, because we know people aren't going to sit there and give us their information for ages. But upon collecting that, we might wait for them to come back to the website for a second visit before we gather more. And on the second visit, that form might automatically recognize that user and change the form to then ask for different pieces of information because we already know their name and email address. This is a great way to populate your CRM, but in a phased approach so that you're not just gathering information in one hit, okay? So really encourage you to have a look at progressive lead forms. They're a fantastic way at gathering more information over a longer period of time. You could also look at something called Typeform, which is another way to break forms down into baby steps because ultimately people won't hang around and complete a long form that you put in front of them. Okay, number 16, this is one of my favorites, I'll be honest, okay, varying UX. So let me just show you an example, okay? So here's a little video of when I looked at the Apple website. And you can see that there's a particular animation going on, which shows I think it's the iPhone Pro in this instance, okay? Now, Apple are tracking how I interact with that website. They're using analytics tools in the backgrounds to see everything from, basic analytics all the way through to how quickly I scroll. And they've realized that I scrolled really quickly. So I went to the same page anonymously. Okay, so kind of in incognito mode, and I saw the same page but a different animation. So watch this. So I see a longer version of that animation and it slides the whole phone up. Now that takes a few seconds longer, but what Apple have done is they've made the decision to, on my second visit, show me a different animation, which is quicker, less time, because they know that I'm not going to hang around. Okay, so they've detected the fact that I scroll very quickly up and down pages, and I haven't got time to watch their animation, which is going to be, potentially 15 seconds or so. Now, the important thing to know here is not all users are the same. Some people will sit there for ages and they'll want that whole experience. They'll want to see the animation and they'll get drawn right into it. Others might know what they're looking for and they'll be scrolling up and down pages very quickly. And your website needs to have the ability to vary the user experience depending on that user. So really important point. I love this and would really encourage you to look at varying the UX on your website next year. Number 17, voice activated interfaces. Okay, so the way that we access information is changing. Instead of typing into Google, we now ask a question or make it a demand. Okay, so this means web design is adjusting as well to keep up with the prevalence of voice chatbots and virtual assistants. While a voice activated interface isn't commonplace for most websites, this emerging trend isn't going anywhere for the foreseeable future. So we can expect to see more and more websites integrating voice search as an option to traditional search in 2022. So definitely keep this on your agenda because I think this is going to explode next year. Nearly there now, folks, 18 out of 20. So we're on to storytelling, okay? So I'm not going to play this video. I'll skip it. I'll give it to you in the slide deck afterwards. But this is actually a video of how WEBBOX introduces ourselves on our own website. And it just gives you a story as our background and our values and our culture so that people can see a lot more about us in a very short video rather than having to trawl through lots of text. Now, this technique of storytelling is one which we need to get into more because people care more about our values and who we are as people than we are about our corporate status, our corporate statements, generally speaking. So I'll skip past that. You can watch it another time, but just because of time, I'll move on. Okay, so storytelling is really important, and for that authenticity to come through is something which we need to really focus on next year. Okay, number 19, our landing pages. Okay, so landing pages are obviously a must-have. Okay, you need to have them. These are kind of destination pages for each motivated visitor who has clicked a call to action that we want them to have more relevant content and to put a particular message or offer in front of them. And most landing pages will now integrate into a CRM system or potentially a marketing automation platform. That's even better. But it's also important that you're in the driving seat. So ultimately, these landing pages that your website has need to be CMS managed so that you can create them, evolve them, change their layout. So it puts your marketing team in control. So really important to have landing pages, but that control of the landing pages on your website. And then finally, make sure that you've got incredible tracking in place so that you can track everything that a user does on the website, and you can then test and learn and pivot based on the data that you gather. Which leads me nicely on to my final point, which is all about advanced tracking. Okay, so this is something which is pivoting massively at the moment, but in 2022, I think it's going to explode into something quite different. So just to touch on it briefly, advanced tracking is really a must for your website. Okay, you need to have, for example, event and e-commerce tracking if you're using Google Analytics to really get down to the nitty-gritty. Now, I'm not talking about just the number of users on your website. I'm talking about who clicked what button. How did they fill out a form? Did they drop off at a particular point? What products did they buy? How much was that sale? You need to know this data because it's the data which will allow you to learn and pivot. The other really good thing is let's get some heat maps set up so that you can heat map your website and see how people interact and where they move their mouse. This is a massive thing so that we can actually adjust maybe things like our navigations to be more relevant for our users. And then finally, if you're dealing with slightly bigger volumes, live dashboards are a great way to see this data in a bit more of a real time. So worth looking into there. So 2022 is going to be a big year. These 20 must-haves are things which we really think you should include on your website. And I hope that for everyone listening today, there's a lot of value from these 20 points.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching another recording from Marketing Showcase Online. I hope you enjoyed it. Just to let you know, we've got all of the recordings uploaded to our brand new YouTube channel, so go over there and check it out if you want some more great content. We run these events once every month, free of charge, so head over to our website to grab tickets for next month's event. I look forward to seeing you there.